Headliner Nation, what is going on? Welcome back into the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here with our Week 9 Waiver Wire show. Hopefully Week 8 went well for all of you. In Week 9, we are going to see 6 teams on a bye this week, including Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, the New York Giants, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco. So quite a few teams this week that we're going to be missing. We've obviously got some lingering injury issues out there that are keeping us from starting some of our regular guys, which is going to make the waiver wire even more important. Well, I've got some bad news for you. The waiver wire this week is garbage once again. We saw it a couple of weeks ago. There wasn't really anybody to go out and pick up. It's really going to be the same thing this year. Shooting for maybe some throw in the dark type running backs, might be a couple of wide receivers you might be able to grab. But right now, not a whole lot that we're running to go snatch up off the waiver wire that could be an immediate impact. But for those of you dealing with the issues that I just talked about, this video is still going to be very important to you. So make sure you turn the volume up, buckle your seatbelt, hop in to the passenger side with me, and let's take a little drive along waiver wire lane and see what we can find. Let's kick it off with the running backs. And Latavius Murray going to be on a bye next week, but keep him in mind 2 weeks from now. Not great efficiency. You know, him and Melvin Gordon both had touchdowns last week. Melvin Gordon had 5 less carries, though. And I don't know if we're really looking to start Latavius Murray when he comes back from the bye, but he's definitely a guy that, again, dealing with injuries, dealing with bye weeks, whatever it may be, when he comes back, he may be somebody that we're going to have to utilize. Kenyon Drake going up against New Orleans. We're going to be waiting to hear more throughout the week regarding Gus Edwards. His hamstring injury that he suffered on Thursday Night Football was not deemed to be serious. It was a minor hamstring pull. So we'll see what that means in the coming week. And they get to play on Monday night. So they're going to get an extra day of rest going from Thursday to Monday night, which is going to be good for Gus Edwards. But Kenyon Drake will be next guy up. If you're looking for a running back and Gus Edwards is going to be limited, Kenyon Drake is going to be a guy that we need to have. 7 carries, 62 yards last Thursday. Rachaad White for Tampa Bay going up against the Rams. Now, Tampa Bay can barely run it at all right now. They can barely run the football at all. And he only got 4 carries, but Leonard Fournette only got 9, and each of them had 3 targets. I think this is going to be something that we just kind of keep an eye on with Rachaad White. And if you're a Leonard Fournette owner, honestly, I would probably grab White and just leave him on your bench for right now in case something were to happen to Fournette. Caleb Huntley for Atlanta, 16 carries, 91 yards, averaged 5.7 yards per carry against Carolina. Now, Algier had 2 less carries, and he didn't even average 3 yards per carry. So not a great efficiency day for Tyler Algier. Now, he did catch that touchdown at one point in time, and Huntley really saw the majority of his work on the ground. But a couple of weeks ago, actually a few weeks ago, I tuned you in to Caleb Huntley. It started to seem like last week that Tyler Algier was going to be the guy, and they weren't really going to give Huntley a whole lot of running room there. But, oh, boom, right back to him this week. Keep an eye on it. Believe it or not, Khalil Herbert for Chicago is between 40 and 60% owned on different platforms. He's not over 65% owned on any platform. And if your platform tells you that he is, I don't know what to tell you. Take it up with their platform, because the numbers that I'm looking at in the general area are saying that he's not owned. So we need to own Khalil Herbert. We need to have him on our roster. He's outperforming David Montgomery right now. He looks like the better running back. He had more carries this past week. He had more yards. He had a touchdown. And by the way, he averaged almost 3 yards more per carry than what David Montgomery did. Khalil Herbert is slowly taking this backfield away from David Montgomery, it looks like, or at least a legit split down the middle, and the better running back has been Khalil Herbert. If he is on your waiver wire, you need to have him. If you own him and you're deep at running back, trade him to the David Montgomery owner for an upgrade elsewhere. If you own David Montgomery and somebody else has Khalil Herbert, I recommend you check in to see if you can get him for something. Jaylen Warren for Pittsburgh is going to be on a bye this week, but I mean, Najee just looks awful. He looks awful. Let me say it one more time. Najee Harris looks awful. Like, I can't even say it enough to really help you grasp the fact how bad he has done this year. It's absolutely crazy. For as many people that are upset about Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris has been just as bad. And you can talk about the foot injury and things of that nature that might be leading to it, the change in quarterback, the offensive line not being as good. You Pittsburgh fans, you tried to sell me on your offensive line and tell me how great they were and that big strides had been made and that Najee Harris was going to be a must start every single week and you needed to be drafting him. I'm not seeing it. If you're a Pittsburgh fan, tell me why. Tell me why. If you're one of those people that spent all offseason telling me how wrong I am, tell me now what it is that you are seeing with your team that is leading to Najee Harris be this bad in 2022. Again, lots of different things going on around him, and maybe it's just all solely predicated on the injury that he had. But Jaylen Warren averaged 4.3 yards more per carry this past week than Najee Harris. Harris just doesn't look right. If at any point in time Pittsburgh decides, all right, we got to kind of cash it in for the season, we're kind of out of it, Najee Harris could start losing more and more touches, and they go ahead and utilize Jaylen Warren to let Najee Harris heal up and look forward to 2023 instead. So for you Najee Harris owners out there, you probably need to have Jaylen Warren, and you need to have him yesterday. Kyren Williams is going to be my Fantrax find of the week, and you know what? He was already my Fantrax find of the week a couple of weeks ago, but I still need to tell all of you that you need to add this guy right now. It's not even a question mark anymore that he may be the best option for running backs when he comes back and he is healthy. Now, let me preface all this with saying that he has been designated to return, and now he has, I believe it's a 30-day window where he can practice, but he has to return, like he has to be active on game day at that point. So that's where things kind of start to come into play in terms of when are we going to see him? When is he actually going to be out there? It's going to be sooner rather than later. I mean, they had a guy by the name of Ronnie Rivers lead the backfield this past week, and he averaged 2.6 yards per carry. Darrell Henderson only got 4 carries. Malcolm Brown got 5 carries. None of them. Darrell Henderson had 16 rushing yards on 4 attempts, and he was the only guy to he was the only guy to have above 3 yards per carry. So for me, when I look at Kyren Williams and I see a guy sitting out there that at the beginning of the season was told by many beat reporters that he could be pushing Darrell Henderson for significant snaps as the backup to Cam Akers, and now he's back and healthy for the most part, almost. He could be the guy that is going to be your starter moving forward for the Los Angeles Rams. And if that happens, he's going to be a guy that, even though the Rams have struggled like all season long and haven't been really able to do anything outside of Cooper Kupp, that still to me signals a running back one that's going to get touches. And when you've got somebody like that that you can pick up and just keep on your bench, those are going to be the type of situations that could win you weeks later in the year when you're missing people due to injury. When we start having guys maybe get a little bit more rest, things of that nature, Williams could become a big time asset for your team. Go get him right now. All right, let's move on to the wide receivers this week. Lo and behold, Rondale Moore breakout week came a week after I projected. That just seems to be how it is. They're going to get Seattle in week 9, and it just awesome that it finally happened because I know the talent is there for Rondale Moore. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 92 receiving yards, and a touchdown. And once again, Robbie Anderson, a non-factor. Okay, it's not, Robbie Anderson isn't the guy. It's Rondale Moore that's going to be across from DeAndre Hopkins. And then, of course, if for some reason we start to see Robbie Anderson maybe get in the games a little bit, it still might not be very much. So Rondale Moore is still kind of that wide receiver 2, I think, moving forward for Arizona. Matt Collins for Las Vegas. I mean, he's not a safe start in any given week. In good matchups, he seems to be the number 2. He only had 34 receiving yards last week, but it was more than Devontae Adams, and he caught 7 of his 8 targets. So if you were in a PPR league, you got 10 points from Matt Collins. So if you're in a half PPR league, he's not really a start. So he's kind of touchdown dependent, but if he keeps getting 8 to 10 targets a game, definitely a guy that could help out if you need somebody like that to toss in as like a wide receiver 3. Darius Slayton's going to be on the bye this week for the New York Giants, but 66 receiving yards on 5 receptions and 6 targets this past week against Seattle. And he looks like the wide receiver 1 in this offense. We know he's got some big playability, but he's being looked at the most right now over Wandell Moore. And because of that, Wandell Robinson, I've got Rondell Moore and Wandell Robinson. He seems to be the number 1 over Robinson right now, and I think that is entirely accurate of what we see now from the team. So if he gets a touchdown in any given week, you're looking at it probably around 12 fantasy points, maybe a little higher. If he doesn't score, you kind of see maybe what we saw this past week, where it's more like 9.5, 10 fantasy points in that area. Van Jefferson, he was back this past week, didn't do absolutely anything, but that's okay. It was just the first game back. I do expect to see more Van Jefferson in the coming weeks. We're not going to be starting him right away. And last week, for those of you that I told to start him, it was when you had really risky options across the board. And I was like, all right, maybe we take a shot at Van Jefferson. So that's going to happen sometimes when you don't have very good options. But he's a guy that we grab, just throw on our bench, hold on, and hopefully him and Matt Stafford get on the same page in the coming weeks. And then Josh Palmer, coming off the bye last week. He was in the concussion protocol the last time that we saw him, but Mike Williams is hurt right now. Keenan Allen's still working his way back for the Los Angeles Chargers, going up against the Atlanta Falcons, a team that you can beat as a wide receiver. Josh Palmer is a guy that we might absolutely not just be picking up, but starting this week. Tight ends, the football kind. Evan Ingram, he's basically a must start at the tight end position now. Since week 5, he's caught 19 of 29 targets for 221 yards. So nothing crazy, but he's startable. The targets are there, the receiving yards are there, and he scored this past week, catching 4 of his 6 targets for 55 yards and a touchdown. He's firmly in the tight end start column right now. He's a very safe bet to have the targets, and if he scores, we see the ceiling increase. Isaiah Likely. I don't know what to tell you about Mark Andrews. He was trending towards playing all week. He got some practice in. Hours before game time, they say, yep, Andrews and Bateman and Gus Edwards are good to go. They're going to be suited up and playing tonight. And then before halftime, Mark Andrews is out of the game. I don't really know how hurt Mark Andrews is. I have no idea at this point. So for Isaiah Likely, he is a top 12 option if Mark Andrews misses. So if you are a Mark Andrews owner and you don't have a backup tight end, I'm grabbing Isaiah Likely and I'm holding on to him just in case Mark Andrews misses this week. Cade Otton from Tampa Bay going up against the Rams, 5 targets last week. Not a whole lot to write home about, and this team is struggling right now. He might be someone that we try to play in better matchups, but really he's only on here to kind of just keep on the radar. Greg Dulcich for Denver is going to be on the bye, but if you haven't picked him up by now, you got to get him at this point. On fire since returning from his injury. He's the number 1 tight end there right now. And not only that, but he looks to be becoming a favorite option in that offense. And then Tyler Conklin, a lot of people dropped him last week after a couple of bad performances. He's going to be getting Buffalo this week, which will be very difficult, but the wide receivers might have even more difficulty. So Tyler Conklin could be the guy that kind of helps save the weekend for them. 2 touchdowns this past week. We're missing Breece Hall. Corey Davis is being, is injured right now. Elijah Moore doesn't love his role in the offense. I don't want to say role because he doesn't even really have a role right now. But Tyler Conklin could be back to fantasy relevance, knowing everything going on around him. What about some streaming options now this week? Some quarterbacks that we could potentially stream. Going to start with Trevor Lawrence going up against Las Vegas. Las Vegas has allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. Malik Willis for Tennessee going up against Kansas City. First start was not good for Malik Willis, but if Ryan Tannehill is not back yet, I don't think they're just going to be able to run the entire game against Kansas City. They are going to have to throw it a little bit, and Kansas City has allowed the 2nd most passing yards to quarterbacks quarterbacks this season, and they have allowed the most passing touchdowns. And then Justin Fields for Chicago, he's going to get Miami. He's been playing a lot better. He's showing rushing upside. He's scoring on the ground. He gets a Miami defense that has had trouble starting quarterbacks this season, stopping quarterbacks this season. So Justin Fields could be a really good streaming option for you this week. If I had to pick any of these guys, it would be Justin Fields to stream in week 9. What about our defenses? I've got 4 potential streamers for you this week. Baltimore against New Orleans. Whoever starts at quarterback for New Orleans is going to be turnover prone. That's what we're hoping from Baltimore, is that we get a couple of those. Jacksonville against Las Vegas. We don't have a whole lot of options this week. So if you're taking Jacksonville, you're just hoping that Las Vegas struggles kind of the same way that we have seen, and that Jacksonville's pass rush can get to Derek Carr and you can get a couple sacks out of it. For those of you that don't believe in Malik Willis as a streaming option, then you might believe in Kansas City's defense as a streaming option going up against Malik Willis. Obviously, he's coming off a poor performance last week. So Kansas City, if you think that their defense is, very good, and you think that they could stop Tennessee, then they might be a streaming option for you. And then Minnesota against Washington. Washington's actually looked a little bit better with Taylor Heinicke at quarterback, but it's still a Washington offense that has issues. And really, for me, if Minnesota can just limit some of the running of Taylor Heinicke and limit some big plays, they should be just fine this week. Do we have any players to drop? I've got 4 potential to drop. Drake London, we're going to keep an eye on. I mean, Demir Bird this past week had more targets, more receptions, more yards, and he scored a touchdown. Drake London is not a thing right now in Atlanta. Robert Woods, I mean, if he starts to produce, maybe we'll run back to pick him up, but I think you can safely drop him for right now. Elijah Moore, I mean, he's not getting anything in New York, and even after basically being told sit out a week and get your head right, he comes back last week and doesn't do anything as well, only 1 target. So Elijah Moore really done for me at this point. And Chuba Hubbard, this is Dante Foreman's backfield, and I'll admit that I missed on Hubbard pretty badly a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I just don't know. You could add both of them. I just think Hubbard is going to be a guy that's going to steal Foreman's job, in the coming weeks. So, depending on how you played your cards, you may have played the long game and went with Hubbard. You may have played the short game and went with Foreman. Whatever it may be, it does look like this is exclusively Foreman's backfield right now. Hubbard is obviously banged up, and we'll see what happens going forward. But Foreman is a guy that has worked his way back from Achilles like we've not seen other guys be able to do. So good for him, regardless of what I've thought about his performances in the past. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me today. Hopefully the waiver wire video helps you out some. Hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel down below, and then make sure that you also leave a comment. If you're looking to potentially drop anybody and pick somebody up, leave me a comment. I'll try to answer some of those questions for you, so you don't drop somebody that you shouldn't be and that should just be stashed on your bench. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. All of you have a great rest of the day. Peace out. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.